Captain Elias Kane stood at the edge of the jagged ridge, his eyes scanning the red, barren plains below. The planet stretched endlessly, a wasteland of rust-colored sand and broken rock formations scorched by the twin suns. In the distance, he could see them. Hundreds of alien warships descending slowly from the sky, their immense hulls gleaming gold and silver, reflecting the dying sunlight. They were magnificent and terrifying, a reminder that humans were small, fragile creatures in a vast universe. Yet Kane did not flinch. His human scout unit had survived countless missions, and they were trained to do the impossible. "Captain, we're in position," Lieutenant Mira Hall reported, her voice steady despite the tension. Her black hair clung to her forehead with sweat, and her uniform was torn in places, but her eyes burned with determination. Kane looked at the 9 soldiers behind him, each one battered, tired, but alive. They had come to this planet for reconnaissance, not war. Yet somehow they had survived attacks that could have wiped out entire armies. Kane's mind wandered back to the battle earlier that morning. They had encountered the alien patrols unexpectedly. 10 humans against dozens of alien soldiers, on paper a suicide mission. But humans fought differently. Humans thought differently. They moved fast, struck hard, and vanished before the enemy could react. To the aliens, it must have looked like the humans were everywhere at once, a massive force they could not predict or defeat. Kane shivered at the memory of the flashes of energy weapons and the screams that echoed across the canyons. 2 of his soldiers had fallen, but dozens of aliens had been sent tumbling in return, their advanced armor torn apart. Now, standing on the ridge, Kane felt a strange mix of fear and pride. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and far from reinforcements, yet they had done what no one had expected. The aliens had stopped attacking, and instead, a single massive flagship hovered above them, descending slowly, almost carefully. Kane's pulse quickened. Something was happening, something no one could have predicted. Inside the flagship, the alien royals watched them. Reports poured in. Every tactic the humans used, every strike, every maneuver. And with each report, shock and disbelief spread across the faces of the Royal Council. Prince Alien, heir to the Zenith throne, clenched his long fingers into fists. He could not believe what he was seeing. 10 humans, 10 soldiers, and they are surviving against us? The Queen herself, Seralia, leaned over the console, her eyes narrowing. Her voice was almost a whisper, though the translators carried it clearly. "How many did they have?" she asked. Her general hesitated, then admitted, 10, Your Majesty." "Only 10. The room fell silent. The weight of that revelation hit them like a storm. They had expected an invasion fleet, a massive army, a war that would be over in minutes. Instead, they had met a handful of humans, and the humans had made them bleed. Humans, how could they be so dangerous? On the ridge, Kane lowered his visor and scanned the horizon. He could see the alien soldiers emerging from their ships cautiously, almost hesitantly. There was confusion in their movement, fear in the way they advanced. Kane knew this was not arrogance, it was respect, though they would never admit it aloud. Humans had done something no one expected. They had turned fear into power, uncertainty into advantage. "Captain," Mira said softly, "they're coming closer." Kane nodded, keeping his voice calm, though his heart raced. "Remember, we do not fight for glory. We fight for each other. 10 of us together. That is enough." The sun dipped lower behind the alien fleet, casting long shadows across the sand. The air was thick with tension, charged with anticipation. Kane's team readied their weapons, though they were not sure if they would fire today. Somehow the aliens had paused, watching, trying to understand. And in that moment, Kane felt something he had never felt before. He felt that humans were not just survivors. Humans were a force of nature, small but unyielding, fragile but impossible to break. And somewhere inside the alien flagship, a prince and a queen realized for the first time that they were facing something they could never fully predict or control. The battle had not yet begun. But the war had already changed forever. The red dust swirled violently as Captain Kane's unit moved cautiously through the canyon. 10 humans, carrying the weight of a mission far bigger than themselves, knew they were being watched. The alien scouts had followed them relentlessly, their glowing eyes scanning every ridge, every shadow. Kane's heart pounded, but he refused to show fear. In human eyes, courage was not the absence of fear. It was the decision to move forward despite it. Keep low. Stay tight, Kane whispered, signaling his squad to halt behind jagged rocks. Lieutenant Mira Hall crouched beside him, her rifle humming softly as she adjusted the scope. They're coming again, she said. Kane nodded, focusing on the approach of the alien soldiers. Their armor shimmered like liquid metal, and energy rifles glinted in the harsh sunlight. They were fast, organized, deadly, and utterly unprepared for what humans could do. The first wave of alien troops moved in synchronized precision, believing they would overwhelm the humans easily. But Kane had a plan. With a subtle hand gesture, he directed 2 soldiers to flank left while another 3 took higher ground. He and Mira would hold the center, ready to engage. Humans had no overwhelming firepower, no giant war machines, yet they had something the aliens could not understand: adaptability. Every movement was calculated, every strike unpredictable. The clash began like a storm. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, leaving scorch marks in the sand. Kane fired from his cover, then rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a plasma beam that shattered a rock beside him. Mira's shots were precise, disabling alien rifles before the soldiers could raise them. The aliens were confused. Their advanced targeting systems could not predict these sudden, chaotic movements. To them, it looked like the humans were everywhere at once, striking in unison, vanishing before retaliation. One of Kane's soldiers, Private Ramos, went down with a yell, struck by a plasma burst. Kane gritted his teeth and ran forward, dragging him behind cover. "Stay with me, Ramos. You're not leaving us," he said firmly. Mira covered them, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're almost through this wave." "Keep moving!" The alien commander shouted orders, but his soldiers faltered. They had never faced such audacity. Each human was a whirlwind of action, defying logic and probability. 2 of the aliens tried to flank the humans, only to be taken down by a well-placed trap, a cave-in triggered by Kane's squad. Rocks tumbled, crushing armor and sending alien soldiers flying. It was not brute strength that won the day. It was intelligence, timing, and sheer nerve. After what felt like hours, the aliens retreated, leaving craters and smoldering wreckage behind. The humans were battered, wounded, and exhausted, but they were alive. Kane's chest heaved as he looked around at his squad. Each of them bore scratches, burns, and fatigue, yet their eyes shone with the same fierce determination. "We did it," Kane said quietly, almost in disbelief. "We actually did it." Far above, in the alien flagship, Prince Alien watched the reports flood in. Thousands of his soldiers had fallen, and the humans they had thought to be a full army were, by all measures, just 10. His limbs shook, his face pale. He had never imagined such capability in a species so small, so fragile by comparison. 10 humans, 10, and they have done this? He muttered. Queen Ceralia's voice trembled as she replied, "We may have underestimated them." Grievously. Back on the canyon floor, Kane's squad tended to the wounded and regrouped. The air was thick with tension, with dust and the acrid smell of burnt plasma. Kane looked at the horizon, at the alien ships hovering above like ominous shadows. "They'll come again," he said, his voice calm but firm. "And next time we'll be ready." Mira placed a hand on his shoulder. "Captain, they've never seen humans like us. They might never be able to understand us." Kane nodded, a small grim smile forming. "Let them try," he said. "We fight not because they understand us, but because we refuse to yield. That is what makes us human. That is our strength." Somewhere in the alien fleet, the Royal Council realized for the first time that the beings they had thought insignificant were not just survivors. They were warriors, unyielding and brilliant in ways the aliens could not predict. And in that realization, Fear began to creep into even the most confident hearts of the Zenith Empire. The battle was over, for now. But the war, and the lesson, had just begun. Inside the massive flagship, the alien royal court was in turmoil. Prince Alien paced back and forth across the polished golden floor, his long limbs tense, his sharp eyes darting to the displays that showed the aftermath of the human encounter. Reports streamed in from every battlefield sensor, and each new report brought disbelief and fear. Thousands of alien soldiers had been defeated, not by an army, not by a full assault, but by 10 humans. Impossible, Alien muttered, his voice low and trembling. He had trained his entire life to lead the Zenith Empire's military, to command fleets larger than some entire planets, and yet here he was, staring at a truth he could scarcely comprehend. It cannot be true. 10 humans, and our forces have fallen? The Queen Seralia hovered near him, her long robes flowing silently over the polished floor. She too had read the reports, but unlike her son, she forced herself to remain calm. Her eyes, however, betrayed the storm inside. They are not what we imagined, she said quietly. We judge them as weak, fragile, primitive, and yet here they are. They survived. They fought, and they defeated our best troops. The general of the fleet, a massive alien with scaled skin and a voice like grinding metal, lowered his gaze in shame. Your Majesty, Prince Alien. They were coordinated. They moved with intelligence no scout unit should possess. We believed we were facing an invasion force, and yet it was only a handful of humans. Alien's fists clenched. The concept burned him. For centuries, the Zenith Empire had prided itself on technological superiority, strategic brilliance, and the belief that no species could match their might. And now in mere hours humans had shattered that belief. The shock was not only in the loss of soldiers, but in the realization that human courage and ingenuity could not be measured by numbers or technology. They are fearless, the Queen said, her voice low, almost reverent. They do not follow the rules we understand. They adapt, they improvise, they fight with their minds, their hearts, and they do not yield. Not ever. Alien stopped pacing and stared at the holographic battlefield displays. He saw the humans' tracks through the canyons, the craters left by their clever traps, the fallen alien soldiers scattered across the terrain. He could see the humans' resilience, how they had protected each other, how they had refused to break even when the odds were impossible. And for the first time in his life, Alien felt fear, not for himself but for what the humans represented. They are not merely warriors, he said quietly, his voice shaking. They are something else. Something we have never faced before. Seralia's eyes softened as she looked at her son. Yes, Alien. We thought our strength alone would guarantee victory, but the humans have taught us a lesson. Strength is not only in size or weapons. It is in will, in courage, in the unity of purpose. They have shown us what true power can be. The court fell silent, each member digesting the gravity of the situation. For generations they had considered humans insignificant, a primitive species barely worth the attention of the Empire. Now those same humans had turned the concept of power on its head. The Queen's voice broke the silence. Prepare the advisors. We must reconsider everything. Every assumption about humanity, every strategy, every conquest. It must be re-examined. We cannot underestimate them again. Alien sank into a chair, his mind racing. He had fought many battles, commanded thousands of ships, and yet he could not shake the awe, the disbelief, and the creeping fear that humans could not only survive but dominate in ways his empire had never imagined. We underestimated them, he whispered. We underestimated them, and we will pay the price if we do not learn. Far below on the scarred planet's surface, Kane and his team rested, unaware of the storm they had created in the royal court above. To them it was simply another day, another mission accomplished. But in the hearts of the alien royals a profound fear had taken root, and it was a fear unlike any they had felt before, the fear of humans. For the first time, the Zenith Empire understood that humanity was not just another species. Humanity was a force unpredictable, relentless, and impossible to break. And that realization, born in the shadows of a canyon, would change the galaxy forever. The canyon was silent except for the soft hiss of wind and the occasional groan of injured soldiers. Captain Elias Kane sat on a jagged rock, his body aching from battle, his uniform scorched and torn. Around him, the rest of the human scout unit tended to wounds, cleaned weapons, and took brief, cautious breaths. The dust of the battlefield clung to their skin, mixed with sweat and blood, but their eyes shone with something stronger: pride, relief, and an unshakable resolve. Lieutenant Mirahal knelt beside Private Ramos, applying a bandage to his shoulder. "You did good out there," she said softly. Ramos tried to smile through the pain, his body trembling from the adrenaline crash. We all did," he muttered. Kane looked over at them, his gaze steady. "Yes, all of us. 10 humans, 10 against a force they believed unbeatable. And we survived. The humans had no illusions. They had been outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every technological sense. Yet here they were, alive. They had learned quickly, adapted faster, and fought with precision and courage that no alien calculations could predict." Kane understood that this was not luck. It was human instinct, human determination, human will, and it was something no alien army could measure or suppress. "Captain," Mira said, glancing toward the horizon where the alien fleet lingered, "do you think they'll come back? With the full force?" Kane followed her gaze. The massive ships hung above them like dark clouds, silent, unmoving. "They might," he said carefully. "But they've seen what we can do. They've learned the hard way that humans don't give up. We adapt, we fight for each other. That's something no calculation can beat." The squad shared quiet nods. They understood what Kane meant. Every human soldier carried the memory of their comrades, the knowledge that each life mattered, and the fierce desire to protect one another. That unity, that courage was their weapon. Technology alone could not replicate it. Strategy alone could not contain it. Humanity thrived in chaos, in the impossible, and in the moments where giving up seemed easier. Kane stood, brushing dust from his uniform, and took a deep breath. "We have a choice," he said, looking at the battered, exhausted faces around him. "We can stay here, wait for the next attack, or we can move forward. We've done what they never expected. Now it's time to finish the mission, return with the data, survive, and prove what humans can do." Mira straightened, her eyes fierce. "We do it together," she said. Kane smiled faintly. "Always 10 humans. 10 hearts, 10 minds together." As they moved carefully through the canyon toward the extraction point, Kane could feel the strange shift in the air. The alien soldiers, the same ones who had attacked relentlessly just hours ago, now seemed hesitant. They advanced more slowly, their formations uneven. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Kane noticed. Fear, respect, or disbelief, it was all there. Humanity's strength was not invisible, and even the most disciplined alien troops could sense it. Hours later, Kane paused to rest. He looked back at the battlefield, at the craters, the scorched earth, the signs of their clever traps, and he allowed himself a quiet thought. This is humanity. Small, fragile, yet unbroken, fierce when cornered, clever when underestimated, and we fight not for glory but for each other. Somewhere in the alien fleet, Prince Alien and Queen Seralia observed the humans below. Every maneuver, every step, every moment of resilience shattered centuries of arrogance and expectation. The humans were not just survivors, they were challengers, equals in courage, unpredictability, and willpower. Kane and his squad pressed forward, aware that danger still lingered, yet stronger than ever. Humanity had survived the impossible, not because they were superior in technology, but because they refused to surrender. And in that moment, Kane realized something profound. The universe might be vast and full of powerful enemies, but humanity had something no alien could ever fully replicate: courage, resolve, heart. And with those things, even 10 humans could change the course of a war. The red dust had barely settled when strange shapes appeared on the horizon. Kane squinted, hand shielding his eyes against the fading sun. At first he thought it was another attack, another wave of alien soldiers ready to overwhelm them. But as the ships drew closer, he realized something different. They were smaller, sleek vessels descending carefully, almost gently toward the human positions. "Captain, they're not attacking," Lieutenant Mira Hall said, her voice trembling with disbelief. Kane's pulse quickened, a mix of caution and curiosity running through him. "Prepare for anything, but stay calm," he instructed. The humans readied their weapons, not out of aggression, but out of survival instinct. They had learned that nothing could be taken for granted. From the leading vessel, a hatch opened with quiet precision. Figures emerged, tall and elegant, their armor gleaming gold. Kane's heart pounded as he recognized the unmistakable signs of alien royalty, their posture, their presence, and the aura of authority surrounding them. Prince Alien stepped forward, his long fingers raised in a gesture of peace. The humans held their ground, unsure what to expect. "You humans," Alien said, his voice amplified so that every word carried weight. "We wish to speak, not to fight." His words were halting, as if the concept of diplomacy with such a small force was itself astonishing. Kane studied him carefully, seeing not arrogance but something far stranger. Awe, respect, even fear. Kane lowered his weapon slowly. "Go ahead," he said, his voice calm but firm. He felt the weight of history pressing down. This could be the first time humans had stood toe-to-toe with an empire far older and larger than themselves, not as conquerors, but as equals. Mira glanced at him, eyes wide, sharing the same mix of disbelief and pride. Alien's gaze swept over the human squad. "You have done what no one expected. 10 humans against my forces, and you survived, and defeated them. We came expecting a full invasion, and instead we found a unit of 10, fearless, unbroken, extraordinary." His words hung in the air like a spell. The humans did not boast. They did not gloat. They simply stood, their faces tired, scarred, yet resolute. Kane's mind raced. This was unprecedented. Diplomacy after battle was rare. But for humans, courage often spoke louder than any negotiation. "We did what we had to," Kane replied. "We protect each other. We survive. That is all." He spoke simply, honestly. That honesty, that humility, seemed to strike the aliens more than any weapon ever could. The aliens looked at each other, disbelief clear in their eyes. Alien's posture straightened and his expression softened. You are not monsters. You are not what we expected. You are something we must understand. We wish to learn from this encounter, not repeat it with more bloodshed." Mira whispered to Kane. They're scared of us, Captain. Scared, but also impressed." Kane nodded. "Yes, they've never seen humans fight like this, and they may never forget it." The alien emissaries extended gestures of peace, offering communication and a chance to share information. Kane considered the offer. It was not surrender, nor was it victory in the conventional sense. It was recognition of human courage, intelligence, and resolve. And in that recognition, a new battlefield emerged, the battlefield of respect. As the humans lowered their weapons fully, Kane looked at his squad. "This is what we fight for," he said softly. "Not just survival, but to show that humanity is more than they imagine, that our courage, our unity, our will, these are our greatest weapons." Alien bowed slightly, a rare gesture for a prince, acknowledging the human strength. The moment was quiet but powerful. Across the plains of the Red Planet, the legend of 10 humans, defying expectations, surviving the impossible, and commanding respect, was already taking root. Somewhere in the shadows of the flagship, Queen Seralia watched silently, her eyes reflecting a mix of awe and fear. These humans, so small and seemingly fragile, had forced her empire to pause, to reconsider, to respect a species they had long dismissed. And she knew deep in her heart that the galaxy would never be the same. For Kane and his squad, it was another mission, another test. But for the alien empire, it was a revelation. Humanity was not just a species. Humanity was a force. Inside the alien flagship, Queen Seralia stood at the balcony overlooking the battlefield below. The red plain stretched endlessly, scarred with craters and marks of the humans' clever traps. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, studied the tiny figures of 10 humans moving with quiet purpose. Each step, each gesture seemed filled with determination that defied logic. How could such small beings have caused so much damage? So much fear? Prince Alien approached her, his expression unreadable but tense. "Mother, they are not just survivors. They are extraordinary," he said. 10 humans, and they have shattered our strategies, humiliated our soldiers, and forced us to consider diplomacy instead of combat. How is this possible?" Seralia turned to him, her face pale but calm. "They are fearless, Alien. They think differently. They fight for each other, not just for glory or orders. Every action is precise, every move unexpected. They are clever beyond our calculations." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We have underestimated humans, and that was a grave mistake." Alien sank into a chair, his long fingers gripping the armrests. "Our scouts called it a battle, but it was a lesson. 10 humans. And our pride, our empire, even our sense of control shattered. They are not just a species. They are a force." Seralia's voice softened almost reverently. "Yes, they are united, resilient, and relentless. They do not surrender, not even when the odds are impossible. They adapt, they survive, and they fight with a determination we cannot break. They do not fear death the way we understand it. They embrace life even in the face of annihilation. That is power beyond our technology, beyond our armies." The Queen turned back to the balcony, staring at Kane's squad. The humans were gathering supplies, tending to the wounded, and moving steadily toward their extraction point. Their actions were simple, yet every move radiated confidence, strength, and unspoken courage. Seralia felt something unfamiliar, a mixture of awe, fear, and respect. Humanity was not like any species she had encountered. "They do not fight like other races," she whispered. "They do not rely solely on weapons or fleets. Their strength comes from within, from their will, their unity, and their courage. That is why 10 humans can defeat what would crush millions of others." Alien studied the humans too. "I watched them protect each other. Every injury, every hardship. They never left anyone behind. Even a scout unit shows loyalty and coordination we could only dream of. How do they do this? How can beings so small, so fragile, be so unbreakable?" Seralia placed a hand on his shoulder. "It is not size, Alien. It is spirit. They have something we lack. Something we cannot measure with science or technology. Their spirit, humanity, is a weapon, a shield, a force that changes everything. If we do not respect it, we will fail every time we encounter them again." Alien remained silent, the weight of her words settling over him. For the first time he understood that the humans were not just an opponent. They were a challenge to everything he had ever believed about power and warfare. The lesson was terrifying. The lesson was humbling. Seralia sighed deeply. "We must proceed with caution. We must observe, we must learn, and we must respect them. For if we do not, the humans will teach us again, and next time, it will not be 10 against us, it will be all of humanity." Far below, Kane and his squad moved steadily through the rugged terrain. Unaware of the storm of thought their mere presence had ignited in the royal court. They were tired, wounded, and far from home, but they carried something stronger than fear or fatigue. They carried courage, determination, and the quiet power of a species unbroken by intimidation, unshaken by overwhelming odds. And somewhere in the golden halls of the flagship, a queen and her son realized the truth. Humanity was not just resilient. Humanity was legendary, a spark that once ignited could not be contained, a force that no empire, no matter how mighty, could underestimate again. The universe, they understood, had changed forever. The red planet's horizon burned gold as the suns began to set. Captain Elias Kane led his scout unit across the rough terrain. Every step measured, every glance alert. They were battered and exhausted, yet unbroken. 10 humans had survived countless attacks, outsmarted an empire, and returned with information that could change the course of history. The weight of their achievement pressed on Kane's shoulders, but it was not pride that drove him, it was responsibility. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to fight for each other, and now, their legacy would be remembered. Lieutenant Mira Hall checked the supplies one last time, ensuring that the wounded were stable, and that their data had been safely recorded. Private Ramos, still limping from his injury, caught Kane's eye and managed a tired smile. "Captain, we did it," he said, his voice weak but proud. Kane nodded. "Yes, Ramos, we did it together. 10 humans against an Empire's scouts, and we survived. That is what matters." Above them, the alien fleet hovered, silent and tense. Prince Alien and Queen Seralia watched the humans with a mix of awe, fear, and respect. The full truth of humanity's power had sunk in. These were not mere scouts, not insignificant creatures to be dismissed. They were warriors in the truest sense, intelligent, brave, unyielding, and united. The realization shook the royal court to its core. Every prideful notion of superiority, every assumption about strength and control had been challenged and defeated by 10 humans who had refused to surrender. Elian broke the silence. "Mother, we were wrong," he said softly, almost to himself. "We believed our technology, our numbers, our strategies would guarantee victory. But these humans, they fight with something we cannot understand. Courage, unity, spirit. That is their weapon, and it is stronger than anything we possess." Seralia nodded, her gaze fixed on the figures moving across the rugged terrain. "Yes, Alien. They are a force. Not just a species, but a lesson. Humanity will not be ignored again. We must respect them or pay the price." Back on the planet, Kane's squad finally reached the extraction point. Their shuttle hovered above, engines humming, ready to take them home. Kane looked back at the battlefield, scorched, battered, yet a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. "We've done more than survive," he said quietly, his voice carrying over the wind. "We've shown the galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. That even in small numbers we can defy the impossible. That courage and unity are worth more than any weapon or fleet." Mira placed a hand on his shoulder. "They'll remember us," she said. "The aliens. The galaxy. They'll never forget 10 humans holding their ground against their empire." Kane smiled faintly. "Let them remember. And let every human remember too, that we are stronger together than any enemy can ever imagine." The shuttle rose, carrying the unit away from the scarred planet. Below, the alien fleet receded slowly, still processing the impossible events they had witnessed. The royals remained on their flagship, silent, humbled, and forever changed. Humanity had earned a place in their minds and hearts, not through domination, not through fear, but through sheer resilience, intelligence, and unbreakable spirit. As the stars stretched out before them, Kane looked at his team. Each face was tired, marked by battle, yet shining with determination. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The galaxy may be vast, but humans will rise. We fight for each other, and no one can